One.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Fitlosophy as presented by Better University at the wonderful All Access Fitness in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. So, if you are joining us today, we are going to be continuing our topic of posture and postural awareness. One of the things that we talked about a lot in the last episode was specifically sitting posture as it relates to your day-to-day activity and driving posture because, well, most of us sit when we drive. I don't know too many people that drive standing up, unless maybe if you're on a Segway or something, but is that really driving? You know, it's funny you bring that up. A little off tangent, but thank you for reminding me.
That's how we live.
I was having a discussion with one of my mechanic friends on what it would actually take to create a vehicle that essentially ran similar to the Flintstones. What we decided on, though, is that you wouldn't actually be able to power it with your feet on the ground, but if you use some kind of system similar to a paddle boat, and proper gear mechanics and changing, you could generate the manpower, not horsepower, because well, it's manpower, to get your vehicle to run.
Actually, it's people power.
Sorry, we need to be. This is 2019. We need to be a little bit more correct. People power, person power.
There we go.
All right.
I agree, though. You're one of those like self-powered treadmills almost.
Yeah.
Or the
Or just a
like
bicycle.
the infinity treadmill.
Literally a bicycle.
Or you can just bike.
Or you could just bike. Anyways, though, let's not get too far off topic. We're actually going to try to stick a little bit more to our guns tonight.
Yes.
So, posture as it relates to sleeping. This is something we do every single night. And unfortunately, there are some habits that we have while this happens that can create issues for us in our every day-to-day life. On top of that, there are some things that are relatively outside of our control that can also affect our posture while sleeping, that then in turn affects our day-to-day lives. Some of the things that come to mind immediately when I think about is the pillow you use, the firmness or the softness of your mattress, whether you're using memory foam or springs. So that's where I want to start tonight. I want to talk not about posture to begin with, but I want to talk about mattresses and pillows and kind of what that does to the body, what modern science has brought about, some of the things that we've experimented with and used that have assisted with that. I know you were mentioning a pillow that's good for the hips, and I believe you have one of those My Pillows, right?
That I do.
I have a, wait, you got a My Pillow?
Yeah.
I like it.
I love it.
What kind did you get?
The medium. Medium.
All right, so
Gotta fluff it up though.
I think that's a great place to start. So let's address the head and the neck as it relates to sleeping and sleeping position. So to give you a little bit of a mental image, obviously you would have this image if you were laying down, but the whole idea is as we're laying back on a pillow, whether you use one pillow, two pillows, three pillows, four, what?
That's ridiculously.
Dr. Seuss style.
As I was saying it, I'm like, four pillows is just way too much, but it just flows. I have to.
But with 4 pillows, you're so far from the floor.
You like the floor, right?
Nice.
So when we're using pillows, if we just have one, depending on the density of that pillow, if you're sleeping on your side, on your back, that is going to prop and pull and position your neck at different angles. Now, one thing that I've noticed, at least with myself, is if I have too many pillows, regardless of the angle it holds my head at, I tend to tense up the muscles in my neck, almost to kind of hold my head where I think it should be. And I don't notice it at first. It's probably maybe laying down for a half hour. If I haven't fallen asleep yet, I start to realize, wow, my neck's kind of getting sore, like I'm working it. And then I realize I've got all this tension that I'm holding on to. And as soon as I kind of adjust and relax, and then my chin ends up getting buried into my neck, I realize, oh, well, that's why I was holding my head like that.
So you're finding you're pushing your head into the
That's-
pillows,
yeah.
despite you were trying to hold your head up where you thought it would want to be.
Yeah.
Now, you know what's interesting about that I was literally just thinking about the other day is, and I'm the type, I have 3 pillows on my side of the bed.
Wow.
My girlfriend has 3 pillows on her side of the bed.
Really?
And yes, now
Jeez.
I wind up too far up if I have them under me. But if I'm on my side and I have that shoulder under me, and then that much space from shoulder to side of my head, I have to fill that with something, or else my head ends up like this when I'm trying to lay on my side. Now, what I was thinking about though is when lying on our backs, why do we think we need any pillow? Because our spine, it has a very slight forward curvature at the head, but when you're talking about proper posture, if you were to stand back against a wall, much like lying flat on a bed, the back of your head should be coming very close to shoulder blades and kind of the rest of your posterior setup.
It's funny you say that.
The whole goal is to have a neutral spine.
Yeah.
Now I've
That is
noticed
weird.
if
Why
I
do you
lay
feel
down in bed without a pillow, I actually feel stretching.
Yes, it feels weird.
So you think about that.
Like,
What does that tell
I'm
you?
gonna sleep without a pillow.
That tells me that I'm pulled forward.
We do.
Right.
We still do have some. You know, as much as we want to, I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what, as much as we want to think that, and I've worked a lot on upper posterior to try to combat exactly that, and I don't have the desk job to encourage it, but I was thinking, I was like, I have at least like a pillow there because my head's a little bit forward from the rest of me.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm very glad you brought that up. No, that's really good. And with the whole lying on your side and requiring 3 pillows to kind of fill that gap, as soon as you said that, that kind of just flicked off a light bulb for me. Now, somebody like you, 3 pillows on your side would absolutely be perfect. Now, when I say somebody like you, I don't mean, you, Scotty Mac. I mean you, someone with very wide, broad shoulders that are very defined after a lifetime spent working on them. So every extra inch you add to your girth, that is going to prop you further up. It's going to put your head that much further away from where it would be.
Yep.
So if you have less than that, either you've got to pull your shoulder as far into protraction as you can, or your head's going to be laying against your shoulder.
So, really funny you say that also, and I mentioned this, I think, on a previous episode, possibly, but I had a tough time with my shoulder fairly recently, and it had popped out of socket one day, and it just wasn't feeling right, and I couldn't raise it, and I thought I was going to have some rotator cuff continuing issues, and it just so happened that weekend I was going camping with my girlfriend and her family. I wound up sleeping in a tent on just a 1-inch mattress or sleeping bag pad, right? And then the sleeping bag had no padding to it whatsoever, and it had nothing for a pillow, right? So I wound up lying pretty much on the flat floor all night, and I thought I was going to wake up in pain because usually I do feel like I need those pillows to support me, and I actually woke up in the middle of the night with my shoulder almost all the way under my chin because I was on my side sleeping like this. And I had rolled over at some point. I woke up and I realized the position I was in, and I just thought that it wasn't going to feel good in the morning, but went back to sleep because I didn't want to deal with it then. It was 3 a.m. There's not a time to deal with my shoulder being out of socket. So I fall back asleep with, again, my shoulder all the way here. I woke up in the morning and I went to the shower house at the campsite, took a shower, dried off, and then realized it was moving just fine. And so after a night of flat, solid ground and my body relaxing in a sleeping state and allowing the joints to move back into position, pretty much what I'm kind of assuming anecdotally ended up happening. So, very interesting.
Yeah.
Makes me double think my nice mattress and box spring.
Right. Oh, we are so spoiled this day and age.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a mattress that I guess supposedly astronauts use, which makes me kind of wonder how they use it since they're perpetually floating. But anyways, it's space age memory foam. Now, don't get me wrong. My God, that mattress is comfortable.
That is ridiculous.
Oh
So I do want to jump over and talk about your MyPillow. Now, before we get started, though, I want to make sure everybody understands that this is not an advertisement. We are not affiliated with them. They're not paying us money to talk about it. It's just a product that I myself have not used, but I know Danielle uses, and she really does enjoy it. So we're going to talk about that for a little minute.
So before I had the MyPillow, I had it was like paper thin. So I went to the extreme and I got a really thick dense pillow, and then my neck was just
Oh, yeah.
tilted up, and I was sleeping like that all night, and it was so uncomfortable. And then I forget, did you get the My Pillow first? Yes. And then I got the My Pillow, and it was a medium fill, and it's been great. It's been great so far. But it's funny that you say the sleeping on your back thing, because sometimes in the night when I can't sleep, I get frustrated and just like throw my pillow down. And
Yeah.
sleep. I'm like, what? This like feels great.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting. And now with having this injury, I have to sleep on my back
Yeah.
for the majority, or I sleep on my side with the pillow. But I'm gonna try that.
So I want to explain the My Pillow though,
Yeah.
real quick, because it's not just like feathers or anything. It's like little
Patented.
small pieces
Yeah.
of foam,
Yeah.
I guess,
Chunks of foam.
so that it allows your body to form it.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It just works.
But you
well.
definitely always have
It
to
doesn't
adjust
resist
it.
against you.
Yeah.
It like
So it's
spreads
almost
for
like
you.
it fills in the space
Exactly.
that your body would create
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
when laying in an anatomical
Which would
position.
make you almost flat anyways, right? Again,
Yeah.
kinda.
Well, so there's the interesting kind of back and forth thought process there is that, like, on the one hand, I for years have supported my spine with the right amount of pillows so that my head lies straight, thinking that that's going to be the best thing for me as far as my posture goes. And then one night sleeping on the ground in the woods, my shoulder popped back into socket. That's not saying this is the best thing for you,
Yeah.
but it got me thinking, is it better to have something that is in fact conforming to you? And so you think about it, if your body is in the wrong position all day and you go to bed like this, and what we're supposed to have happen is overnight our body gradually relaxes and the hard, firm earth pushes our bones back into position as we unconsciously roll around a little, move around, that happens.
Yeah.
Instead of being
So
on the floor.
is that right?
Yeah.
Or instead we're filling in with some, pudding to just
Yeah.
That's a pretty good
And we're
analogy.
just,
I've actually never thought of this until we talked
Yeah.
about it.
right? And so if you're like this and you plop into your pudding pillow, no offense, I'm not trying to
You and your 3
You
pillows.
want that
totally
pillow?
trashing. I've never tried the thing either.
Pillow hater.
I bet they're awesome.
So funny.
Again, 3 pillows. But if you're like this and then you go to bed on something that keeps you like this, you're gonna wake up like this.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So we have these memory foam now. So that gives me a great jumping point for the next topic. So when the gradual transformation and shift happened from springs to memory foam, because quite frankly, it's actually hard to find a spring mattress nowadays. You still can. You can absolutely get one almost anywhere. But most of the furniture places, if you're buying brand new, you're going to have some kind of memory foam, even if it's just like a memory foam layer on top of a spring mattress.
Yeah.
But what we were starting to find was having a spring mattress, because of our bone structure, our body structure, weight disbursement in different areas, it would push and prop up parts of the body, creating issues for the hips, the shoulders, the neck, the head. Especially if you think about it, if you're laying on your side and you're in a surface that kind of bends in one place but pushes up in another, because over time, the springs would start to wear out.
Yeah.
And actually that happens almost immediately. So the places where more weight...
Yeah.
Well, like, moving out Grandpa's old mattress. You look at it like, aha, I see where Grandpa slept. You can literally see it. I remember when I finally got rid of my old spring mattress, there was a groove in it where I slept. Not a memory foam groove, mind you, a spring groove.
I was just gonna make the joke of it's the that was the first phase of memory foam, was just springs wearing out.
Yeah.
But it's the same as that, like your comfy chair at home that has that
Forms
perfect
to
butt
you.
groove just
Yeah.
for you, like
Shoes, everything.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of a Homer Simpson anecdote when somebody messes up the butt groove in his couch. It's like, oh, this is going to take forever to make this back.
I remember that one.
So I'm thinking about, now that we mentioned actual memory foam, I think what you said about keeping the body in the same place, I think that makes sense for that. But for this pillow, it allows the little pieces to shift, so it doesn't conform you, but it does at the same time. I think that's why it works.
I think
Half
that
and
could
half.
be
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of the combination.
Like
Right.
it
the
sounds
happy
like
medium
maybe.
almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Because
that.
it really is.
Yeah.
It's like if
It's
you're
all
laying
solid
down
needs.
flat on your back, well, there's a little space here and here, so it would flip to fill to form.
You have to definitely fluff it. Like,
I forget,
it's
yeah.
like-
I forget to do that sometimes. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah,
So
it's like fluff.
with that in mind, that was the argument for why memory foam started to become so mainstream and popular. Was as you would lay down into it, it would fill those grooves. It would fill that space. It would, like sleeping on a cloud. I mean, I think that was actually one of the slogans of one of the first memory foam mattress companies, right?
Sounds right.
But you bring up a very interesting point that if you're jacked forward like this, and the mattress is designed to fill in that space to cradle you, is it not going to just cradle you in that
You're
bunched up
cradling,
position?
you're cradling the bad posture. You're coddling the issue.
Yeah.
I would love to see if anybody is currently studying or experimenting with this,
Yeah.
because if they're not, they absolutely should be.
Yeah.
There's
I'm
interesting.
sure we can find some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
studies.
Little
You can definitely
Google
find some.
scholar.
They've been out for a long enough time, the mattresses. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. You think about sleep, posture, nutrition. These are all sciences that we actually haven't spent a lot of time studying, considering how,
Every single
I mean,
day.
the human race is pretty young, but it's also pretty old from like an individual standpoint. You think about like mathematics or chemical science. I mean, we've been experimenting and, writing the books on those for so many years that it's almost like you can't prove new theories anymore because of how tested it is. But then you've got all these other things where it's like, wow, it seems like we should have been paying a little bit more attention to these
Other things.
maybe
I
like
know.
several thousands of years ago.
Definitely.
But, I
I
guess
think the
it's-
testing methods advancing.
Yes.
Probably
a lot to it
helps.
and everything. But no, you're totally right though. Even in cases where that isn't necessarily the case, though, I don't think there has been as much focus. But I was just talking earlier about this, that it's cool to see how much more there is.
Yeah.
Getting more mainstream, if anything.
And I think as that starts to happen, we are going to be finding more and more interesting things. Not to get into this topic today, but just the other day, I was listening to some new research that was coming out involving calories. So one of the things for the last few decades that has been kind of like pounded into everybody's heads was calories in versus calories out. All calories are the same. They're starting to find more and more that there is a huge difference in how the body metabolically responds to different types of calories. So one of the biggest studies that was used for the longest time to really a calorie is a calorie was known as the gas station study. There was a man who set, I forget how many people it was like maybe 20 to 30 individuals on what he considered a gas station diet. You ate only things you could find in a gas station, but you ate within a caloric field.
Window.
And these people did. They lost weight because they were eating in a deficit.
Yeah, but your composition.
Yeah.
So bad.
So that was kind of like that. That was it. They stopped it right there.
Yeah.
So what they're starting to find now is that 3,000 calories of whole food versus 1,500 calories of processed food is about metabolically equal.
Ooh,
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
Like
interesting.
So-
literally half.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting.
So these whole
Whoa.
foods, the body responds to them with a higher metabolic burn and wants to
'Cause it-
utilize it as
yeah.
fuel.
Wow.
The
'Cause it has
processed
less breaking
foods,
down to do.
the
the
processed
process,
foods,
yeah.
on the other hand, trigger the body to store and lower the metabolism and not
That
burn the
makes
fuel
sense,
as
though.
efficiently.
It makes sense.
That's crazy.
So it is some cool stuff. I definitely want to read a lot more about these
Yeah,
studies that
that's
are
really
coming
cool.
out. But I think maybe in a couple weeks we could do an episode on some of the new stuff that's coming about
Yeah.
in nutrition.
Yeah.
Could be kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
Well, I
like
mean, if
you
you
get an
think
article
about
or
it-
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like flour that's already broken down, of course it takes less energy to break the rest of it down, so.
That was exactly it.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with how processed the carbohydrate was or how refined the carbohydrate was.
Interesting.
Lower thermic effect from the nutrient itself.
Yes.
Sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The interesting thing, if it is actually slowing the utilization of nutrients for the same amount of work in any way, then that could actually start saying something for processed foods in the cases of like long hikes or excursions where you need to carry less with you. You can take in less calories a day, still perform the same amount, so to speak. But
Maybe that's
of course,
why,
there's a lot more
Yeah,
to
yeah,
it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we
think
may be
about
looking at just lower utilization of them, which
Yeah,
that
That's
doesn't help you.
interesting.
think
Yeah.
about sports beverages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Exactly.
example.
That's where my mind was kind of going with that, and then
Mhm.
down the rabbit hole.
'Cause, well, I mean, yes, rabbit hole, but I love these rabbit holes because this is still really good
Yeah.
stuff.
I do.
So, on one of my first backpacking adventures through the Pemigosset Wilderness, we're out there for like 5 days.
Where's that?
It's up in the White Mountains.
Oh,
It's a loop that makes up many of the presidential peaks. So
Wow.
it was absolutely amazing experience. I definitely recommend anybody who likes outdoors. If you like doing like multiple night camping, you don't mind carrying all your gear in,
Yeah.
hiking around, making camp, and then continuing on. I mean, if you deal with the elements and all that other fun stuff. But the point of what I'm getting at here is this may be a little bit of an overshare, but for the 5 days we were there, not once did I have to eliminate waste other than urinating. And I was eating a ton of food.
Wow.
Interesting.
I gotta
So-
pay attention to that. I'm going to Acadia National Park and we're gonna do that. So.
I'd be
I'll
very
pay attention.
curious. I have to believe that,
Jacket.
well, in a situation like that, you got to think
Yeah, but-
every single day, there's no way you can take in enough calories to meet the energy demands of hiking, 17 peaks, full gear, and
Yeah.
camping out. Like, it's just, you can't. So, at that point, if your body's utilizing everything, there's no material to get rid of.
Yeah.
While we are going down the rabbit hole and going on this a little bit, I have this conversation with my clients quite a bit, actually, especially those who are bodybuilding clients and who are really focused on macronutrients, calories, and that, that aspect versus the in the gym training stuff. There are calories in your toilet before you flush.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are calories in your toilet before you flush.
You just reminded me of another really interesting thing from that same study I was just referencing before, with the whole thing about the thermic effect and the metabolic rates. It has a lot to do with the bacteria in your gut. There's certain
Yeah.
foods that they'll activate more and use more of, as opposed to just shutting off and sending it on through, or telling your body to store it.
Absolutely. Well, then you have like sugar feeds yeast. You have more candida buildup. You can't absorb as many nutrients, so your body can't utilize as many nutrients. So then you can't obviously exert at the same level. This is where I talk to people in some of the other realms of sport that tend to be less focused on the minutia of nutrition rather. Excuse me. And it's all important. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but if you really want to maximize what you're doing, you got to be paying attention to those details.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
All right. Now, as fun as this little rabbit hole has been, we are getting close on time, so I do want to move to our next segment, just so that way I don't have to cart around my whiteboard for yet another week,
Yes.
because
Let's get
I'm
to
quite
this
proud of
beautiful
these drawings. So, the next thing that we're going to discuss is the core. Now, the core is very misunderstood by mainstream, the average person. Before I even show the drawing, what I want to ask you guys is the first time you ever thought about the core, before you had any formal or informal training as far as fitness was concerned, what did you think it was?
The hot liquid magma that fills the earth.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase the question. When we're referencing the abs or the abdomen,
Yes.
where was the first place your mind went? Like, which muscles?
I mean, I think of just central,
Yeah.
and I don't really think of the rest on the outside.
Yeah.
And
I
now,
certainly was of the same school.
Just the six pack.
Just this, yeah.
Just the six pack. Yep.
so when I was a lot younger, much larger human being then, and I was obsessed with trying to do crunches and sit-ups to get that six-pack abdomen. And one of the things that I unintentionally did to myself that it took me a long time to first discover, and then second to start to correct and fix, and unfortunately it's still a big issue for me today that if I'm not aware of, I do tend to start to revert. the abdominal muscles, literally just the abdominal muscles,
Rectus abdominis.
yes, thank you,
Right?
rectus abdominis, which is the muscles that just go right up and down the front, and it's the ones that we consider the pretty muscles. It's the ones that are most visible when the body fat starts to get down below a certain percent.
The six-pack muscles.
Yes.
Yeah. So the top half of that is so overpowering compared to the rest of my core muscles that if I'm not careful and I don't pay attention, I try to crunch instead of brace my core. And that ends up creating issues with me for getting my transverse abdomen and my pelvic floor to activate properly when I'm doing heavy deadlifting or squatting.
Yeah.
Now, with that in mind, I do want to get to our awesome whiteboard drawing.
Didn't yours like split kind of?
Yeah,
What
so
was
I
your
mean, you
problem?
can explain it first so they understand, but I can also go into my
There we go.
concern with it.
Yeah.
All right. So if we look all the way over to my right, which I believe is the left on
This
the
one?
camera. Yes, thank you. So right there, if you can see towards the middle, we have the rectus abdominis, which is all that muscle tissue right up through the middle that tends to make up the six-pack and the lower portion of the abdomen. Now, one of the most important muscular groups of that are the ones off to the side, your external obliques. Those hold, brace, twist, and move your body all around your spine. Now, a lot of people, when they think about core muscles, abdominal muscles, that's where they stop. They don't go much further than that. That's it. That's where it is. Those are the abs. That's the core. But what we fail to see or get is this one right here in the middle. Now, I would argue that the transverse abdomen is one of the most important aspects of the core structure. Not to say that it all isn't important, but I would argue that the transverse abdomen, especially in modern Americans, is the least activated and least utilized core muscle. Now, I love this drill because every time I have a new client and I tell them to brace their core, the first thing they do is suck it in. They suck it in and flex. So the cool thing about that is the rectus abdominis is really active. The external obliques are probably pretty active. Your spine's probably braced properly from the erector spinae, your multifidus. But what you're lacking is the transverse abdomen, the diaphragm, and your pelvic floor. Those three muscles aren't doing their job. So the best way I can describe the transverse abdomen to help you kind of understand exactly what you're dealing with, imagine it like a balloon that is inside of your body. And the way to get it to activate is to inflate that balloon, not deflate that balloon. So when we talk about the blocking technique in exercise, we tend to try to use that analogy, the balloon analogy. You want to fill your belly with air. You want to pull your diaphragm down to maximize how much air pressure you're creating. So while the transverse abdomen pushes out against the abdominal wall, the external obliques, we create tension by then flexing and drawing the external obliques, the abdomen, into the transverse abdomen. So together, you have this pushing and pulling force, which creates that tension that we're looking for. If one is completely inactive and overpowered by the other, we lose out on a lot of potential energy and what I like to call energy leaks in your squat, your deadlift, any exercise really. Now that kind of brings us to this last one right here. Often overlooked, often injured, especially in improper deadlifting. You've got the erector spinae and your multifidus. So the fun part about the erector spinae is they have one job. It's very simple, but it's a very important job. They stabilize your spine. They don't pull weight, they don't push weight, they stabilize. But unfortunately, when we see deadlifting a lot of times, especially with very rounded backs, the erector spinae are doing a lot more than their fair share of the work. Rather than actually trying to stabilize your spine, they're trying to pull the individual segments up to be straight again. Now, they're not supposed to do that, and that's why we end up in situations where we slip discs or we pull portions of it and end up really rough for the wear, to be completely honest. I mean, I can tell you I'm dealing with a back injury right now that, ironically, has nothing to do with lifting heavy weights. In fact, my back injury was from picking up a resistance band off the floor.
That is actually lifting weights, technically.
But I want to express that to help kind of drive the point home with how important the core is, how important proper bracing technique is, not just in lifting weights, but in your day-to-day life, in moving. If you're sitting and your transverse abdomen isn't at 20% activation, and your rectus abdomen is at 50% activation, you're going to be pulling yourself inside of yourself. That's going to be pulling on your spine. That's going to be depressing your rib cage, stressing out your psoas muscle. And I could go on and on about other little things inside that are happening when that happens that might not necessarily make a lot of sense. So just trust me and understand that when I say it all has to work and function together. Now, where this becomes really important, again, bringing us back to our whole topic on posture and everything else that we've been discussing. Let's say you work really hard to address where everything's positioned and lying in your sitting position, yet you're not making sure that your core is both pushing and pulling and bracing. I use that whole 20% activation thing because ideally, almost at any state except for maybe sleep and rest, your core muscles should be at a 20% activation. That's going to keep your spine upright. It's going to prevent them from tiring out because you're not flexing them. You're keeping them at a very gentle baseline activation. A lot of people do this without even realizing it. So one of the things I do with my clients to help them understand the differences in what's going on is I'll tell them to, brace, activate their core. And they'll do it, and chances are they'll suck in. And then I'll explain what was wrong with that. I'll explain to them what the transverse abdomen is and how to inflate that like a balloon. Then without warning, I'll take a mock swing at them towards their core.
A mock swing.
And you know what they do 10 times out of 10 instinctively without even meaning to? They brace. They push their transverse abdomen out into the abdomen.
That's funny.
Watch your belly next time.
It's good that I have my martial arts.
Kick him with your boot.
And you'd end up busting up your, rather than your shin, your
my martial arts reflexes are not doing well.
But I know I just kind of dominated the conversation there real quick on the core, but I was super proud of my drawings, so just wanted
No, they were
to
amazing.
really share that.
Those were very good.
So with the few minutes that we have left, I do kind of want to hear from you guys, just as far as what your thoughts, opinions on the core structure, things that you've encountered in your own personal life as far as growth and development goes, or revelations you've had, or even things that you've seen with other people.
So I personally did the same thing as you. I would crunch, and I remember I would go on YouTube and look up like videos like 10-minute abs, all that stuff. Anyway, so that was the underlying structure of my abs, so it wasn't that great. But I remember maybe it was about a year ago, not even. I was taking a video. I jumped up on a football post and I was doing hanging leg raises. And then I looked at the video and I could see a line going down my belly. I'm like, what is that? So then
was this the cone?
Yes. So my belly was coning. So I did so much research because I had no idea what it was. So in between your six pack, you have, it's called linea alba. Am I saying that right? So it's a connective tissue that connects the two left and right side. And if you have your intra-abdominal pressures off, then it's all going to go in that connective tissue. So I was determined to activate my TVA, the transverse abdominis, and that's when it kind of had that moment for me. I was like, what is that
You were
line? I was pissed. I came home and I was like, what is this?
Because you worked so hard towards something that you shouldn't
Exactly.
have.
And I'm like, why don't I know this? So I
Yeah.
just did my own research, and I mean, it was just because it was all on my six pack,
You know what?
That for me, I was like, that's so mad.
Yeah.
But now it's not in there anymore.
There you go. A year
People
later.
don't talk about that stuff enough,
Yes.
though.
Yeah.
What you were just saying, you work so hard at something.
Exactly.
And you thought you were doing the right thing. Same way you
Mhm.
thought as, an overweight, younger kid that you were doing the right thing, doing crunches.
I was actually harming myself.
There we go.
Yeah.
Because it was weakening it. And that also goes with people who are pregnant. They don't understand how to still continue to use their core. and then they lose that, and it just gets wider and wider.
Well,
This is,
It's interesting.
I love that that was brought up because the thought train that I just had, I was really, really on board with it, just totally derailed. Crap.
Oh no.
All right, you guys keep going. Hopefully they'll come back to me.
So as far as the I'm sorry, what's the condition called again? The line in the center.
Oh, the Lina alba.
Lina
Yeah,
alba.
it's like
So-
that
They
connected
simply
to-
call it coning, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess you
Because it
would
does.
call
It kind of it looks like
Yeah.
like a cone.
Because your belly's basically just going up,
Right.
just a little bit. Yeah,
So-
it's all that pressure.
I actually I have a client who had that happen from pregnancy,
Yes.
and she ended up needing to get the surgery and mesh and everything.
Oh my
So-
goodness.
Yeah, because
Is
if
that
you
bad?
if it's
Wow.
if it's come apart far enough, and I think it's usually they want you to be able to, if you can get it back with it. I know for her it was an inch and a half or something like that.
Wow.
Wow.
I know
She
if it's like
couldn't get
2
it
fingers
in.
or something like that.
Yeah, if it's past
Yes.
that, usually it's not going to be able to get back in on its
Oh.
own. Now I've seen other people actually have great results with a lot of work.
It's a
just
lot.
working that
Well, I mean,
TBA.
you're growing a child and it's pressing against your abs. But a lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions that like you shouldn't work out when you're pregnant. But that is so important that you do, because then you'll be in that position. You know?
I see that all the time too.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't
It's-
do that. You're gonna hurt the baby.
Moderate.
Yeah. I mean, you just
Well,
gotta know how to
there's-
do it right. Just
There's
like how I do
absolutely certain
Yeah.
things like you shouldn't be doing
Yeah.
exercises laying down
Yeah.
on your stomach.
Of course.
At a certain
100%.
point, I think it's once you get to like the 3rd trimester, you shouldn't do exercises on your back anymore. But from that, you can just about do
Pretty much
everything.
Yeah.
There really aren't many limitations. I mean, obviously, you're probably not going to try and set a PR on your deadlift or your
No, no, no.
squat.
I would say, to be clear here, check with your doctor
Yes.
first.
Oh my God,
Absolutely,
yeah.
always,
Yeah.
always, always.
Situation. And
always
obviously,
different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Every
Yeah.
pregnancy is different too.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know I had a client a while ago who specifically could not do any impact work, but it was very important that we kept her training because of exactly what we're talking about. Her core muscles actually, she had an issue where they were unstable to the point where the like the positioning of the
Oh,
baby they were kind
wow.
of concerned with, so they wanted to make sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, she had
Very
surgery a
interesting.
while prior.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so whole other thing with that,
Mm,
but couldn't do any high impact stuff.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
try and
everyone's
do
all
both at the
very
same
different.
time.
Yep.
But I am glad that you did say that. We have this disclaimer on our website, obviously, but just to be perfectly clear to everybody, the information that you're getting from our show is not to be used in substitute for advice from your PCP. It's good information. It's scientific information. It's absolutely based off of our own individual bodies of research from the information that's out there. But we're not here to diagnose you. We're here to talk about what is general within the public. Most people fall into that category, but that doesn't mean your specific situation does. On that, though, does anybody have anything else they want to discuss about the core? Because I did just remember that thought, and I think it's a great thought to end the show with today.
Oh, I hear it.
So, with what you were discussing, with what I was discussing, and Scotty making the point that we thought that was the correct thing to do. We thought that was it because it's just out there. It's like, oh, get your 6-pack abs doing this, this, and this. There's so much misinformation out there that is presented as, the holy grail or, the creme de la creme or the coup de grace. And we have to take a step back and realize that if somebody's out there trying to sell us snake oil, if somebody's out there trying to sell us a magic pill, if somebody's out there addressing our problem with a simple solution that doesn't actually involve us working hard, 99% of the time, they are full of...
If it's too good to be true, then it is.
So I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about us, about what we do at Better University between our nutrition advice, our training, and all the programs that we run for our clients, is all of this is based off of science. All of this is based off of our work with human beings, with people. It's simple, not easy. It is never easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it, everybody would look like a Greek sculpture. All right?
Exactly.
It's simple. The processes are very simple. It's not easy. But again, that is one of the things that I think really helps us set ourselves apart from a lot of things that are out there.
Yeah, also, no matter how much you hope something is true, you have to accept that it's not. A lot of people have trouble with that. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think that for a fun thing, we should real quick run through, name something from a TV infomercial that
Oh, gosh.
doesn't work.
Oh.
I'm going to start with
Oh,
the ab shocker.
what is that?
You've never
It
seen
stimulates
No.
your abs.
I knew
Oh,
somebody who had
God.
that growing up. Oh my goodness.
Jeez, I'm
We used to
thinking-
hook it up to like everybody just to see, can you handle the full voltage?
Oh my.
That's
So it was
awesome.
less about the exercise and
Yes,
more just
that's
about
what-
screwing
I was
around.
pretty
Yeah.
much playing with a taser.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because it would send electrical impulses through the muscles, and what they were selling you on was like, why waste your time activating the muscles when you can
Exactly.
sit on your butt and watch TV while the machine does it for you?
I put in hard work.
So there's one.
It's
got
easier to
any
just stick your finger in a socket.
Do you have one?
Off the top of my head, no. I got to think about it a
So
little
there's,
more.
I have two. There's the shake weight.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
And then there's also the
That's a
one
good
that you
one.
stand on that you twist.
Oh God.
You know that one?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a curved like board and then you like twist on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Huh, mine's every single diet pill there is.
Yeah.
There you go, there you go.
Oh, I do got one.
Yeah.
All right. So for a while I think they're Swedish. There were these chairs, and they would
Oh, boy.
push you into a forward lean, and you would be against a knee pad. They're like, this is great for your back, your hips, your core.
Oh my god.
And it is. But it is terrible for your knees
Oh.
and your hip flexors.
Yeah, it's pretty
I can tell you from
hard.
firsthand experience, not me, my mother
Aw.
destroyed her knees
Poor
from
thing.
utilizing this product for
That's
years.
really
So
sad.
see, like we just don't have, like it's just a new thing. We don't know what it does over time.
Right.
So
Just like technology.
yeah, exactly.
It's gonna come.
We're the guinea pigs.
It's coming.
And so I think that one great point to take from that, because I think you just nailed it. Most of the time, the thing, now there's always new information coming out, and be wary of that. But the things that have been proven to work are usually going to work pretty well. Don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Don't.
Mhm.
All right. But on that note, we are at time. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Just want to let you know, if you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, help us get in front of more eyes. If you have any questions about training, nutrition, or any of our challenge programs, our classes, any of that, please drop us a DM, shoot us a message through any of our public media forums, and we'll definitely get back to you and let you know how you too can be a student at Better University. Good night.